many people have different purpose of. Many people believe they have a different purpose of existence in this life, based on their, depending on the upbringing and their religious beliefs, and this purpose may be similar or may vary among different societies. Can you review the current day beliefs? Current day beliefs in the respect, how does Islamic belief differ from the others?
Sure. Like you said, there's a lot of variety in religious beliefs in the world, and not just religious beliefs, but even a-religious beliefs. People that just decide that religion is not going to be a part of their life. They've decided that it's something pre-modern or superstitious, and they're beyond it. People essentially consider the purpose of their life revolving around their own needs and wants.
I see.
So essentially, you have people that basically want to live in the moment, and this is very common in our times. So you have people that basically want to make the most use of their time, trying to get the most pleasure, enjoyment, entertainment, wealth, assets, name, fame, you name it. Trying to acquire that in as little time as possible. Kind of the philosophy that you only live once, so might as well live it out. Other religious philosophies, of course, have some kind of moral restrictions and place some kind of prohibitions on one's life. So there are certain things people can't eat or do or say or dress like, etc. So you have certain religious restrictions. But other than that, essentially the purpose for which they live is the same. In other words, okay, they have certain religious restrictions, but they also aspire towards material pursuits and fame and enjoyment and entertainment, all of those things. In contrast to these views, what sets Islam apart fundamentally is that it is a recognition that life itself is a gift that has been given to us by our Creator, our Master, and finding purpose in that life can never be separated from finding what is it that the Master wants from you. And actually, at the heart of finding our purpose in Islam is the concept that we are slaves. I'm not even going to use the word servant, even though the word slave sounds very negative. We're slaves to that Master, that Creator. And being His slave is different from being a slave to anyone else. I know when we think of slavery, the images of being forced into doing something you don't want to do, your freedoms being taken away from you, all of these images are conjured up. And this is something relevant to the American context and other civilizations as well. But when we think about slavery to the Master, the Creator, one of the things that sets it apart is that this Master is extremely merciful. He's extremely patient and lenient with His subjects. And additionally, the slaves have the option to walk out of slavery at any point they want. In other words, this is not a coerced form of slavery, it's a voluntary form of slavery. And hence, in the very first chapter of the Quran, you have the Arabic phrase, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, which roughly translated is, it is only to you that we give ourselves willingly into worship and slavery. We enter ourselves into slavery to this Master. And just trying to wrap our heads around this question, then how is this tied to the purpose of life? Essentially, we make a commitment to this Master that we are going to make His will primary and our own secondary. And this is not just a matter of dietary or fashion restriction or in terms of how we spend our time in a day, but rather it's about outlook in life. So a famous declaration in the Quran is Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alameen. Again, roughly translated, there is no doubt that my prayer and my sacrifice, which refers to my ritualistic sacrifice, and my life, my living and my death, all belong to Allah, the Master of all nations and all peoples. In other words, you've given yourself up in terms of your priorities. So now as a Muslim, as a slave of Allah, as a willing slave of Allah, I'm going to pick a career in life, a family in life. I'm going to do things with my life that will essentially be an attempt to please Him. And my own aspirations have now come under what He demands from me. And we actually believe that this is not a form of oppression, that this is actually the only real means to find happiness. So it's not just the means of finding one's purpose, but it's the only real means by which our hearts will finally be content and will find happiness.
So in other words, you're saying it's a slavery by will, if I may understand you correctly.
Sure. Yes.
And it is not a contract that you sign and you get into slavery and you're breaking a contract and you're totally done. I mean,
actually, interesting you bring that up. In Islamic creed, a contract was already signed before we were born.
Okay.
So Muslims believe that all of us were created in the form of our souls. The Arabic term is ruh. And we existed in the company of our Lord. And the Lord asks us, before He sends us down, He asks all of us collectively, before the earth was created, before all of this is in the 7th surah, He says, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your master? Am I not your Lord? And all of them, all of the souls, including ourselves, we replied, Bala. We said, of course, why not? We bear witness to this truth.
Okay.
And now that soul was poured into the womb of our mothers before even we came out of our mothers.
Okay.
And that contract, that covenant, it's really called mithaq. The Arabic word mithaq refers to covenant. That covenant has already been taken, but human beings forget.
Okay.
Revelation comes and reminds the soul of the covenant already taken.
Okay.
So when human beings with an open mind think about revelation and think about the purpose it's calling them to, their inner conscience agrees with it.
Okay.
And it's that inner conscience that's the essence of the human soul in Muslim creed.
So this purpose of life, we can still, as people who believe in Islamic creed, they can still be living their life to the fullest based on the criterion once you get into this contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, again, an important consideration, the Quran talks about you being a slave no matter what.
Okay.
In other words, you're either a slave to your desires, your temptations, your addictions, your obsessions. You're a slave to them. And you can't even help yourself. Nowadays, it's very easy to find people that are enslaved to their addictions, be they drugs or alcohol, or be they even something as trivial as TV shows.
Okay.
You can't even help yourself. You have to watch that next episode, you know?
Okay.
And you're obsessed with it. You can't, it's beyond you almost.
Okay.
Right? So what Allah is saying is, if you enter into my slavery, I will set you free from all these other forms of slavery.
Okay.
In other words, in slavery to Allah will you finally find true freedom.
True freedom. Moving on, life as we know is usually full of struggles.
Yeah.
And we've seen that many people have, there are many haves and have-nots in this society. What does Islam teach us about, it puts people into difficult situations at times. So what does Islam teach us about these situations,
tough situations in life? Okay. That's actually very powerful. When we declare Allah not just our creator, we declare Him our master. The Arabic word is Rabb. The word Rabb in Arabic has many connotations, and I'd like to give you a list of them. The first connotation is master. We already talked about that.
Right.
Then there is the one who has complete authority over you. The authority. As-Sayyid, they say in Arabic. Then He's the one who has complete ownership over you as well. And this is important just in brief, because it's possible for you to own something but not have complete authority over it. Like your car. You own it, but you can't make any modifications you want. There are requirements by the state or whatever else, right? Or you can't drive it however fast you want, and you still have to get insurance or inspections and all of that stuff. So you have ownership but not authority. But a master is one who has ownership and has authority. Together at the same time. Okay. Additionally, it's wal mun'im, the grantor of gifts. Now this is important. A master, when he gives something to his slave, it's not considered compensation. An employer when he gives to the employee, it's my paycheck.
Right.
I deserve it, and if I don't get it, I have a right to complain. But when the master gives to the slave, then that is considered actually a gift. A gift. So my creed as a Muslim is that whatever I have in this life is a gift. And whatever I don't have, or whatever is taken away from me, wasn't mine to begin with. Now the thing between a gift and compensation, or paycheck, is a gift is something you don't deserve. So if you don't get it, you can't complain, because it wasn't something you were worthy of to begin with. It's given in addition to what you are owed. If it's owed to you, it's not a gift. It's compensation.
It's a compensation.
Right? So we believe everything we have in this world is compensation. So my master decided to give me 2 functioning hands. These are 2 gifts of his.
Okay.
If I only had 1,
you can't complain.
I can't, because it wasn't mine to begin with. And actually, we take this to the nth degree. The Muslim takes this to the nth degree. When somebody dies, you know what we say to each other? We say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. It is no doubt we belong to Allah, and to Him we have to be returned.
Return.
What am I going to speak about my hand for, or my clothes, or my health, or my children, my family, my car, my house, my job, when I myself am the property of Allah? I myself
Yes.
belong to Him. So whatever's taken away from me wasn't mine to begin with. And my teacher, the psychology of this is very powerful. My teacher explained it to me in this way. Human beings, when their faith is weak in the master, really being master, right? What happens, it's kind of like the parent and the child, right? The parent says to the child, the parent's about to eat some ice cream. And the child says, Dad, can I have some? Little kid, can I have some? And Dad says, no, you can't have it. Can I have some? Okay, you can only have 2 bites. Hold on to this for a second. Just have 2 bites and give it back to me. The child takes it, takes 2 bites, 2 licks. The parent says, can I have it back? What does the child say?
No.
Mine. This is mine. You forget.
Yeah.
Now, the Lord gives, He gives, He gives, He gives. And then He takes away. And when He takes away, what do people start complaining?
Yeah.
This was mine. This was mine. But the Muslim has to internalize, as the fundamental part of his creed, it's not his to begin with. So whenever problems happen, and if you keep that at the forefront of your mind, the Quran says, لِكَيْ لَا تَأْسَوْا عَلَى مَا فَاتَكُمْ وَلَا تَفْرَحُوا بِمَا آتَاكُمْ. So you may not grieve over things you lose, and you may not become overjoyed over things you gain, because you know all of these are a gift, and all of these gifts are temporary, because you yourself are temporary. You belong to Allah as well.
So now that we've touched on things we don't have, for instance, take an example for a person who is well-to-do in this life, has good status, a good family, good things at his disposal, and how can Islamic values and the teachings change change the way that such a person approaches life? Like, so if I'm a well-to-do person, how should my values changes my life?
Okay, once Islam enters the life.
Right.
Okay, so you have a well-off person, and he or she accepts Islam. The first thing they find is peace. You have people that are extremely wealthy, and they have mansions, and they live in very lofty apartments or condos or whatever else, but they can't sleep at night. They have to take drugs to go to sleep. They have nightmares. They find they feel this emptiness inside of them, and they try to fill it with movies, and they try to fill it with drugs, they try to fill it with alcohol, with clubbing, with multiple relationships. They try to fill it with you name it, and yet the emptiness remains. It just keeps haunting them. The first person, and when we say well off, I say they're not well off in one thing. They haven't found peace.
They haven't found peace.
They're not at peace with themselves. These are extremely sad people. And so the first thing Islam gives you is this peace. You're finally at peace. You found something that is now, your pursuit of everything has withered away, and you found a higher pursuit, a higher purpose, a higher calling. Now that doesn't mean, to be a good Muslim, it doesn't mean you sell your car and ride a bicycle from now on, or sell your apartment and live in a shack or whatever. Islam does not take away from the luxuries of life. You can have them in your hand. All Islam does is it takes them out of your heart.
Gotcha.
So you can have it in your hand, but not in your heart. But for a lot of people, even if they don't have it in their hand, where is it? It's in their heart. And that's why they're feeling this emptiness. Because no matter how much you get, there's always going to be more. There's something you don't have. Like for a child, if we instill this into a child, you take them to the toy store, you buy them a toy, but their eyes are not on what they just bought. Their eyes are on the $2.5 million of merchandise left behind.
Yep.
There's something more. You buy your teenager a video game. He's done in 2 days. His eyes are on the next one that's coming out. He doesn't even look back at the last one.
There's
There's always more. There's always more. Islam comes and says you can have the world in your hand, but Islam will take it out of your heart. So the world was created for us. We don't say that the world is an evil thing, that it's a gift. The world is a gift. The luxuries of life are a gift. You should dress well, you should eat well. There's nothing wrong with any of that.
Okay.
But if you start thinking that those very things are the reason for which I exist, it is the good clothes, the status, the house, the money, the car, these are the things I exist for, then you've lost your purpose. So Islam comes and says, use these things and use them so that you can find your real purpose.
So use these at your disposal, but there's different purpose in life.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, and this is more psychological. Once
yeah,
you find
we call it spiritual. In modern terms, you can call it psychological. It's a change of attitude, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. It's interesting that you brought out a point of next life. the previous life, this current life on this earth, and the life to come. Many people, they believe that if they're so focused on the life to come,
Yeah.
and they believe that killing innocent people will surely take him. You've seen, I mean,
The rhetoric. Yes.
the rhetoric of suicide bombers
Yes.
who kill innocent civilians, convinced that their reward is in the next life.
Yes.
People who are of different belief in this world, is okay for them to be killed in order for them to receive a reward in the next life.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, what leads these people to do such actions? Is there any basis for these people in Islam?
You have to understand the background to this issue.
Okay.
In my conviction, the religion of Islam and what it really has to say about these things has been distorted and hijacked
Okay.
by two entities.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, there are disturbed and extreme individuals within the Muslim community
Mm-hmm.
that are using religious texts, rather I should say misusing religious texts, to justify their positions.
Mm-hmm.
And these are people more often than not that are deeply disturbed individuals
Themselves.
So their psychological issues manifest themselves in a misinterpretation of the religion, in most cases, unless it's deliberately misinterpreted, and in very few cases is it a genuine misreading of the text. On the other hand, there are those who have decided that Islam is the enemy and Islam is to blame for all extremism, etc., etc., and therefore they have decided to demonize Islam and call it the religion of suicide bombings, etc., etc. And what's crazy is this extreme element on the one hand that's within the Muslims, and the extreme element that is antagonistic to Islam from outside Islam,
Okay.
they're saying exactly the same thing. And the vast majority of Muslims and the scholarship of Islam is stuck in the middle, hijacked between these two extremes.
Between these two.
And the common person doesn't get to hear what the average Muslim himself or herself believes about these things, or what the scholarly tradition of Islam has to say about these things, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So this issue is something I believe hasn't been given the light of day. It deserves more attention.
Mhm.
It deserves a comprehensive discussion. And like we said about justice,
Right.
part of justice is that the Muslims themselves, I myself, you yourself, Muslims in general, own up to the fact that extremism within us exists.
That's right.
And it should be combated, and it not only is it an attack against innocent people
Mhm.
and innocent civilians, but it's an attack on the integrity of Islam itself.
Okay.
Islam is being attacked when someone says these things.
Right.
Because Islam is being misrepresented. And if I find my dignity with Islam,
Mhm.
then I have to stand up for Islam and refute these kinds of things. Now, what basis is used? I'll give you the brief. This is a long discussion. I'll give you the briefest version of it. You know, in discourse, you have such a thing called a foregone conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
What that means in simple terms is you've made a decision that you want to kill innocent people. Now that you've made that decision, you want justification for what you're going to do. So you start looking at the book,
Mm-hmm.
and you start trying to find things you can use to justify your position.
Your actions.
So you make a collection of quotes
Mm-hmm.
that, if put together in a stream of thought, in a stream of discussion,
Mm-hmm.
will lead to the conclusion you already decided you're going to do.
Okay.
And anything you read that may contradict your conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
and any discussion that might refute your claim, you will conveniently omit, like it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Okay.
So now when you take these statements
Mhm.
and you put them in string order,
Mhm.
and you make your conclusion, it sounds as though you are genuinely quoting the Quran, you're
Mhm.
quoting religious sacred text, and coming to these valid conclusions because the texts exist. But in any civilization, in any half-intellectual society,
Mhm.
there's the concept of proper context. There's the issue of historical context and textual context. Where is the verse coming from? How was it applied? How have the Muslims acted on that verse
Mhm.
for the last millennium and a half? For the last millennium and a half. And how is somebody going to come around and read that one verse
Mm-hmm.
and come up with their own conclusions that contradicts the entire intellectual tradition of a civilization that spans continents,
Right.
and completely contradict it, and then we say there's a legitimate opinion? It's not a legitimate
It's not.
opinion. It's a genuine misreading of the text.
I see.
And I know this is, again, a long conversation, but just one small food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
Suicide bombers in particular, or people who engage in acts of violence against civilian targets,
Okay.
are acting out typically on their own, individually,
Mm-hmm.
or at the most under the organization of a small cell or group or whatever. In other words, they've taken whatever verses they have and decided this is something they have the authority to execute on their own. Fighting, killing, whatever it may be that they think they're doing is on their own authority. You tell me, how is it possible to have an Islamic civilization, a government, that has existed for centuries?
For such a long time.
If millions and millions of people living under that government felt they can take killing in their own hands. They can take, killing people and taking revenge or whatever injunctions they may be that include punitive action, any kind of action that harms another. If individuals feel they can take that in their own hand, then that is the end of law and order. And you cannot have a civilized society.
You cannot
if
coexist.
there is going to be any kind of punitive action, be it the death penalty or imprisonment or punishment, whatever it may be, whatever punishment is there, if it's not executed by a body of government, a governing body, and if it is, by the way, it's part of the constitutional law.
That's right.
But if you take it in your own hands, you can only be called a criminal. And so for the Muslims, and I'll be honest with you, like for example, the 25th of December, the issue in Detroit.
Right.
Right. And what do Muslims have to say about that? Well, what if I'm traveling? I travel with my family all the time. What if I'm on the plane? I'm not going to stand up. I'm not going to beat that guy up or do whatever I can to get rid of him.
Definitely we would.
It's not like Muslims are. We're not supposed to be blinded by the fact that somebody is Muslim. We're saying this is a crime and it doesn't matter who does it, because we have to stand up for justice even if it is against our own selves.
So do you believe that there are people in this world who believe who do not believe that there is a purpose in this life? And, there is no purpose in their life for their existence in this world. So if so, how does such people arrive to this conclusion?
A lot of people who arrive to this conclusion commit suicide.
Okay.
These are extremely depressed people. Why am I even here?
Okay.
There's no point to life. There are entire musical genres in Western society, in modern society, dedicated to how depressing life is.
Okay.
Right? And you don't find fulfillment in anything. Everything is empty. Everything is void. Now, how did they come to this conclusion is the question, right? Well, you see, first of all, I truly believe that in our society, Islam is a treasure that hasn't been explored.
Okay.
Even if you don't accept Islam. Muslims, we have an obligation, of course, and this as one of those efforts, to try to introduce Islam to a large number of people. Even if you don't accept, know what we believe and know the peace that we enjoy in our life. And know why we don't have to sing depressing, dark songs about how life is empty and void of all happiness and there is no purpose. And we're all going into the ground, it's all going to end anyway.
Okay.
We don't have to be this way. We found, peace in our relationships. Muslims live happier, a practicing Muslim will have a happier marriage. We have happier marriages. We're happier with our children. We're happy with what we have. You can have a lot, you can have a little, you'll still be happy. I know Muslim families that lost everything in Katrina, but they're really happy. And I know non-Muslims that lost everything and, they're like on depression and these sorts of things. So what I'm trying to get at the bottom line is that the people who come to the conclusion that there is no purpose in life genuinely didn't give Islam a chance.
Okay.
They didn't look around. They saw the emptiness in whatever religion they were following, and then decided, I'm going to paint all religions with the same brush.
Same brush, okay.
And there is no purpose.
Okay. And finally, I would like to give you an opportunity to share any words of advice or wisdom on how to achieve contentment in this life, and peace and purpose, contentment in this life.
You see, most people, when they think about peace and contentment, they think about what they want to do for themselves.
Okay. Self-centered.
So it's kind of it's a selfish thing, and that's okay, because you know what? According to Muslim creed, human beings were introduced to the Lord before they even got here, like we mentioned before. But now when they come to this earth, they're no longer in His direct company. So there's this emptiness inside the human being,
okay,
longing for that
the
amazing company that the human being once enjoyed. Now, that emptiness, you can fill it with anything else, and it will just be depleted and it won't fill you.
Okay.
And the only thing that will fill you is when you realize that original covenant, you are master, I am slave, and I'm ready to serve. and I want to serve only you. If you turn to God, I'm not even saying Allah, you turn to God and you say to Him, I have decided to serve only you. Show me the truth. And I've decided I really want to be your slave. My innermost conscience, in the depths of my heart, I feel this was the purpose for which I was created, and I want to come to you and only to you, and I want to do no blasphemy towards you. I do not want to follow the word of man. I want to follow your word. Show me what you have to say. Show me how to be your slave.
Okay.
Because when someone says, I want to be your slave, this is really important now. When someone says to someone else, or for example, if I was a slave and I had a human master, how would you know if I was a slave? You wouldn't.
That's a good point.
The only way you would know that I'm a slave is if I was always doing what the master wants. But the only way for me to know what the master wants is not telepathically. He's got to spell it out for me. If I'm a slave and the master never tells me what he wants, he never tells me what he wants, then guess what I'm going to act on?
Yourself.
My own will. And if I'm acting on my own will, I'm no longer a slave. I'm free. The only difference between a free person and a slave is a free person acts on their own will, and a slave acts on the will of the master. So if you've decided you're going to be a slave to God, you're going to be His slave, then it's necessary that you ask Him, well, tell me how to be your slave. The Qur'an's phrase for that is, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us. Guide us to the straight path. Tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make you happy.
Right.
I don't know what you want me to do, what you don't want me to do, how you want me to live, how you not want me to live. You know, I know none of these things. So I beg you to guide me. And if that question has come into your heart, then read the translation, even the most shallow translation of the first surah. I'm not going to say chapter, even though that's what most books say. It's the first unit, if you will, or the first surah of the Quran. Just read it even in translation. You'll find what your inner conscience has been thinking outlined right there.
Okay.
Outlined right there.
Briefly.
Comprehensively.
Comprehensively. Okay. Okay. Well, very well. I mean, so far we have touched upon the purpose of life, the existence, the social justices, and being a slave, the difference between being a slave to a master who is our creator versus being a slave to another person, XYZ, and your opinions, how one can be content. And I think this would help our viewer to understand and differentiate, if I would say, the differences between this religion versus another religion or versus no religion at all. And I appreciate your time and effort in this matter, and thank you very much for having you here.
I appreciate the invitation. I hope this is of benefit to the audience.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied with letting others misrepresent Islam? No, we must do something. Support 877 Why Islam project. They have put billboards in over 40 cities, hundreds of subway and bus ads. 877 Why Islam airs radio advertisements in major cities and recently launched TV commercials on local Fox, CNN and CBS channels. Send your donations today.